We're back in northern Delaware restoring a 200-year-old spring house. These lintels are almost 200 years old and finally need to be replaced. If it wasn't for the roof failure, these lintels would be in very good shape even now. My first step, of course, is to remove the stone directly on top of the lintel. The old lime and sand mortar falls right to pieces. Lime mortar is great for using with stone and old brick, but it does have some limitations. This lintel is going to be especially challenging. Let me show you why. Because this lintel is near the top of the wall, I need to remove way more stone than if it was lower down. This is because stone will form a natural self-supporting arch, just like this. Being near the top means there is no counterweight and every single stone above the doorway needs to come out. Kind of like this. The lintel close to the top totally failed. Everything over the top fell because it had nothing to hold it in place. I really hate working over my head. I carefully lay out the stone so it's a little bit easier to put it back in its original position. I may just be able to recycle this old mortar. I almost never use power tools doing this sort of work. With a power hammer, there's too much of a risk of damaging irreplaceable historic elements of a building. A hammer, chisel, and crowbar are usually sufficient. And now to pull out the actual lintels. Yeah, they're pretty well shot. I need to cut the new lintels, but I'm going to start by mixing some mortar. The sand I'm using is from a local stream, and the lime, well, it's from stone I found on the job site. If I need to add a touch of water, I'll use lime water. This should be an exact copy of the original mortar. I could talk for hours and hours and hours about how to mix historic mortars, what they were made out of, and different mixing techniques, but I really don't feel like getting into it now. The new lintels have had several months to dry out, and it's finally time to put them to use. This mortar's been mixed for several months now, so I really need to beat it up a little bit before I use it. I put down a thin layer of mortar just to level things up a bit. I decided to make the new lintels twice as thick as the originals. This is more in line with what I generally see in high quality historic work. Just like in the original construction, I'm going to put down a bead of mortar right on top of the lintel. If it worked for 200 years before, it'll work for 200 years again. I carefully study the pictures I took so I can do an accurate reconstruction. You'll notice that I never once considered using steel to reinforce the new lintel. When working with a historic building, we have to assume that there is a constant flow of moisture going through the walls. Anything, like steel, plastic, or Portland cement, that stops or hinders that flow will cause premature deterioration. I can only go so far with the stonework until the new ceiling joists are in. The original stonework was only completed after the ceiling joists and the top plate were installed. The new lintel's in, now I have one hell of a mess to clean up. I want to try my best to save every tiny fragment of old mortar for later use. I want to save every piece of stone because I'm going to need that later. I have another lintel to replace in this building, but I believe I'm going to do that live in real time.